What an appropriate song to introduce this next segment. There is a renewed call for the government to build a dedicated forensic psychiatric facility to house mentally ill inmates. Joining us this morning to share insight is consultant forensic psychiatrist and head of the psychiatry department at the University Hospital, Dr. Clayton Sewell. Morning, Doc. How are you?
Morning, I'm fine. Thanks for having me.
Welcome back to Smile.
Yes.
All the best to you and the family for the year, sir.
Yes, thank you.
As we said just now, we want to get right into it. There is a call for a dedicated psychiatric facility, forensic psychiatric facility to house mentally ill inmates. Why is that? I think we know why, but share with us, why is that absolutely necessary?
All right. So prisons are meant to protect the wider society by holding persons who are offenders, as well as rehabilitate them. A general prison will rehabilitate an offender who is the average type of offender. Someone who has an issue related to their mental health will need to have that addressed, and that is ideally done in a facility that is designated, that is approved, that has the resources to manage a particular challenge so that their risk to the society can be reduced. And so therefore, the ideal setup is that sort of therapeutic environment, which also has that security component so that they're not able to escape easily, that we are still able to protect the society while providing the specific treatment. So
it's to provide the essential therapy while they're going through the process of rehabilitation, yes, and obviously the custodial sentence associated with the crime for which they've been convicted.
Yeah. I don't know if you know, but what obtains in other jurisdictions?
So in other jurisdictions, there are specific facilities, and there are of three types, really. You can have a standalone forensic mental health hospital, where the individuals are there under the conditions that the court attaches to them, and they are receiving treatment and are separated from the society. You can have it as a part of a general mental health facility, but a specific area that is designated as the forensic area. So for example, in Trinidad, they have a hospital that provides that service. Or you can have it being a part of a correctional facility. Now, the important thing, though, if it is in a correctional facility, is that it must be separate from the general population, and they must have health care providers providing the service, the day-to-day interaction with these inmates, which currently is not really the situation in our setting here. So those are the three models of care.
We had an issue that Mr. Noel Chambers, 81 years old, was in jail for 40 years. But in preparing for this, I read that since that, they've implemented 60 medical posts, which include 9 posts for psychiatrists, 11 for psychologists, and 11 for medical officers. You're saying that's not enough?
It isn't. So there has been a lot of
That's not enough, or it shouldn't be happening where it's happening?
It's not enough in terms of the human resources.
Right.
There isn't enough in terms of the pharmacological and psychological therapy that is needed, and also in terms of a therapeutic environment.
Right, so it shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen there, even if there were 100 of them, it shouldn't happen in the same jail where regular.
That is my opinion, because it is an old facility. It is not designed for the therapy that is needed for the general prison population and also for the mentally ill. And so there is the need for a significant improvement in the environment for the creation, in my view, of this new facility and for the provision of the services. The argument can be whether it is attached to a prison or a hospital or a standalone facility, but there is the need for that specific environment for the mentally ill offender.
In terms of that particular environment, what would you recommend? A standalone facility attached to a prison, or a section of an existing hospital? What say you?
So I believe that if it is integrated into a general correctional facility, then that is the more affordable option. Because you already have security that is attached to the facility, that you just have to expand it to include the mentally ill facility and then bring in the healthcare staff. But it must be a purpose-built facility, and it must have all the resources that it needs.
Dr. Clayton, the argument could be made that they shouldn't be there in the first place. Do you have any numbers here that how many mentally ill inmates we have?
So it's in excess of 200 when you look at the entire correctional facility. And that's a good point that you've raised about them not being there at all. And I think we also need to take the approach, a preventative approach, so that we don't have persons ending up running afoul of the law and ending up in correctional facilities. So there's also the need to improve our community mental health services as a part of this approach of improving facilities inside the prisons so that fewer people will end up committing offenses, those with mental illness that is, and therefore there will not be the need for them to be placed in a facility.
Earlier, when Neville pointed out what's taken place since the Noel Chambers case about the 60 medical posts, you just noted a while ago that there are about 200 mentally ill inmates. But you said that number was not enough in terms of the number of posts. But with 200 inmates, 60 medical posts, so 9 psychiatrists, 11 psychologists, and 11 medical officers. Let's, the medical officers aside, let's just focus on the psychiatrists and psychologists. That's a total of 20, right? That 20 is insufficient to manage and support the 200 inmates?
It is, because managing...
What's the ideal ratio then?
Well, the ideal ratio globally is estimated should have about 1 in 10 ratio in terms of, certainly in terms of psychiatrists to offenders. So there's, the need for more of those specialists. Also that they should be trained in managing prison mental health care. And I think that is also one of the deficits. Certainly over the years, we've had more graduates coming out of the University of the West Indies who have improved forensic mental health skills. But there is a need for greater specialization from psychiatrists and psychologists. And also, as I said, the necessary medications.
Share for us, or share with us, the nuanced difference between a psychiatrist or a forensic psychiatrist who has, quote unquote, general training versus the ones who have specific training to manage inmates.
All right. So forensic psychiatry is really looking at mental illness and how it relates to offending behavior. And so it helps us to be able to identify particular types of risk that an individual may pose and put specific interventions in place to address those concerns. And so it also helps us in being able to report to the court on the particular issue. So motivating factors for offending, recommendations for treatment and rehabilitation. And so yes, as general psychiatrists are able to provide some of those services, but it is significantly improved when you have training to deal with the mentally ill offender specifically.
Yeah, you said 200. Do we have the human resources? Because if I say, all right, Dr. Clayton, I want you to deal with this, it's only that alone you can deal with, because what? The treatment is an everyday thing. I don't know if you understand the question.
Yeah. So it's an everyday thing, and I think it's very intensive in that particular type of environment, because you have to ensure that not only in terms of the daily interaction with the psychiatrists or the psychologists or the social workers and nurses, but also in terms of rehabilitation activities for the mentally ill. There was a discussion earlier, just before us, about the play therapy, but there's also the need for activity therapy for persons with mental illness when they're in custody that will help in their reintegration and rehabilitation. Because a number of them, after leaving prison, which most eventually do, though it may be delayed, they're unable to function outside. And there have been a number of cases, that have been reported in the news of individuals who are now back with families, and the families are at a loss as to what to do.
This question coming from way out in left field. We have Bellevue. Is there an area at Bellevue that they could retrofit just for that? Or I don't know if you know this.
Right. And actually, Bellevue at one point served as a forensic mental health facility for Jamaica.
Okay.
And that was ended, I think, in the early 70s. And so there is space, but Bellevue itself is in need of improvement. And so one thing to consider is whether, as a part of that improvement plan, to also include a forensic mental health facility, and that is for the powers that be.
Which is why I said if it could be retrofitted to do that. It's important, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's an extremely important issue.
Yeah, man. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
All the very best to you and the family. Sit with us for a second. Consultant forensic psychiatrist and head of the psychiatry department of the University Hospital, Dr. Clayton Sewell.
Yep.
Super.